This is PORCFEST 2025, Thorium, the rest of the story. Now we're to part 2, my research of Ayn Rand, Building a Story in Tears. I did so much research on this, I actually did an 8-week course, a senior college course in 2024, Ayn Rand's Passage Through the 20th Century. Essentially, I wanted to go through her entire life, her family's relatives, to get a better idea of this woman who was originally called Alessa Rosenbaum. I've also done some other workshops in 2014 before the Atlas Shrugged Society, a 150-minute workshop. Who was John Galt? That's part 1. Then in 2015, another 150-minute workshop, Connecting the Dots, Why America Was Denied John Galt's Molten Salt Thorium Reactor. In fact, these 2 videos can be found on the following links. There's one, and it's a 12-parter to break it up with Q&A. And the same thing with part 2. It was broken up into 8 parts. Building a Story in Multiple Tiers. On May 18th, 1934, I'm going to read through this because it's important what she actually wrote to a director. 29-year-old Ayn Rand wrote in a letter to Kenneth McGowan, a film producer and director who, by the way, in 33 directed Little Women that won an Academy Award in 34. I think that's one reason why Ayn Rand was writing him, looking for more business. She wrote, "If the plot of a story is simple and understandable enough to be interesting alone, by itself, to even the lowest type of mentality, if it has the plain elements that can appeal to all, and if, at the same time, that plot carries a deeper meaning, a significance which can be reached only by the highest, then the problem is solved. I must emphasize once more that it is not merely a matter of a plain story for the sake of the lowbrow, artistically presented for the sake of the highbrow. It is a matter of the plot, the story, the very meat of the film arranged ingeniously enough to satisfy both." And this comes from Letters of Ayn Rand. Is there any reason why a story cannot be built in such a way that it is convincing and interesting to those who cannot analyze it, and yet just as convincing to those who can? And she went on, those who still want to go further, such as my theory of building a story in tears, it is, in a way, the same principle as that of an airplane carried by 3 motors. If 2 of them fail, the third one is still enough to carry the plane safely. That is the principle which I have applied to every story I have written so far, but I have never developed it as plainly and obviously, and if I might say so, as skillfully as in Red Pond. Also, I have never had a chance to attempt to explain my theory to anyone, and as I have done here, I have no doubt that it will work. No doubt, but also no proof, for I have not seen it tried. Now, I have a picture here, which we're going to get into a little later, but it's the concept of multiple stories, even within a picture. And she finishes up by saying, "It is my anxiety to see it tried which prompted me to write this letter. It is, of course, difficult to have any new theory tried, for there is always an element of chance in the attempt. But in this case, it occurs to me that there is hardly any chance at all for disregarding my considerations. The story, I believe, is good enough to stand on its own, just as any movie. I can go on all pictures with just the one motor. What the other two motors which it carries will do, that is what the experiment will show. And here I say, see image of to right. Most people eventually find two images and stop there. Ayn Rand's third motor truth might be waiting for some real world event to highlight and expose. Let's go to the next page. You've all probably seen, or many have seen, this famous woman illustration. This was an anonymous German postcard from 1888. In 1890, advertisement for Anchor Buggy Company, they came up with this updated one. Now let's look at it closely. Now, question, who sees an old woman? Who sees a young woman? Have we overlooked anything else? Hidden in the bonnet, with clenched hands and a clown in white face pantomimes horror at something stalking the woman from behind. Why was Ayn Rand filled with anger and fright, spanning 11 years while writing and later publishing her Atlas Shrugged novel? As we've learned from the writings in history through her journals. Example of a short 5-minute 3-story story. I wrote a small one. It's only 5 minutes, but essentially it's a takeoff of It's a Wonderful Life. And it's titled, Is It a Wonderful Life? Who is John Galt? And this can be found online. What did Nikola Tesla, George Bailey, and John Galt have in common? Rumor has it businessman Henry Potter could view future timelines and determine how to act upon them to maximize personal wealth and power. If 10-year-old George Bailey disappeared, how might life have worked out for Potter and his descendants? Detective Mike Hammer catches a cold case mystery which will send a chill right down to his tailbone. And again, you can watch this short 5-minute story at the following link. Let's take a break.